Women Cantors Network and to Robbie for putting this together and for you to come. And I would ask that anybody who's camera shy join me in getting on camera, because I really feel better when I'm talking to people. I don't have enough of an imagination to really imagine people on the computer. So if I can see you, that's helpful. Ladino is one name for the language that is also called often Judeo-Spanish. It comes from the Latin Latinus, which means multilingual. And its origins are probably in ancient Rome, as early back as ancient Rome. So its origins aren't Spanish. Its origins actually come from the same origins as Spanish. And I will ask you if any of you are ethnomusicologists, if Orit pops up, which would be really fun.
I'm right here.
I have to make a disclaimer that I'm not an ethnomusicologist. I just am trying to retrace some steps with this music and learn as much as I can, because I have really, there are very few people left around to teach this music, and I've been happy to be in touch with some of them. But anybody in my clan who was singing this music isn't alive anymore. So the Ladino language came from this ancient Roman. It was at one time spoken by 80% of diaspora Jews. However, when the Holocaust happened, 90% of the Ladino speakers were killed and the communities were destroyed. The largest Sephardic community probably today is a large Sephardic community in Israel, which only fairly recently has really spoken up for keeping Ladino alive. Unlike Yiddish, which is also considered a language being lost, Yiddish has active speakers in the Chabad community. The kids were always running around speaking Yiddish. There's nothing like that for Ladino. And so the songs are a major way that the Ladino has been kept alive. And what I like about the Ladino songs is they're this much of Sephardic culture and learning, but they are the gateway for a lot of people to come in and learn the history of the Jews of Spain. And whatever your area of interest is in Jewish history, I am not a historian either, but in whatever area of Jewish history you may consider your passion, the Jewish Spanish history has a big piece underlying. So even if you are a Holocaust scholar, and that's really your passion, if you look at the history of the Jews of Spain, that will be important. So enough talk. Let's get into the beauty of Spain. So what I have for you is this share screen, and I have slides for you from my trip to Spain 2 years ago. I made a trip with my family, along with all the cantors, to Jewish historic sites in Spain, and that is going to run. That should be, yeah, there it goes. Okay, and that should be running while I'm going for at least part of this. And you'll see that I start with pictures of flowers and garden. And and this song that I'm going to start with is to really get you in the mood with your olives. Okay, I like Goya because they taste like the ones in Spain. I actually have a salad because I did not have time to prepare my eggplant. So bilbilicos are nightingales. And this song says, the nightingales sing songs of love in a beautiful rose-filled garden in the month of May. Very timely. Los bilbilicos cantan con suspiros de amor. Mi neshama, mi ventura, mi neshama, llama, se escurece, sufriendo del amor. Más presto ven, paloma, más presto ven conmigo, más presto ven, querida, más presto ven, querida, corre y sálvame, y sálvame, y sálvame, y sálvame, y sálvame, y sálvame. Los pirílicos cantan con suspiros de amor. Thank you for listening so attentively. It's really hard when I can't see people. So I hope you're enjoying the pictures of Spain. So I will get right to some of the things that I said I would talk about. And one was what I don't share with audiences when I'm singing these songs. As I said, I'm really accustomed to dealing with kids and families and audiences that they're curious about the music and aren't too interested in the backstory. So I'm going to give you some of the backstory, and that has to do with some of the meaning of the songs. So the next song, the way I generally present it, it's La Sirena or Mar de Leche, and it's a pretty familiar song. But I'm usually in situations where I present it. Stefan gives a very moody La Sirena. Okay, he gives a very moody introduction, and then I talk about in the tower there's a window, in the sea there's a tower, in the tower there's a window, and in the window you can see the face of the siren of the sea. She calls to the sailors and the fishermen in their boats, and when they hear her voice, they come to believe that the sea is made of milk and the boats are made of cinnamon sticks. And for those people, I stop and I go into the song. But I'm going to talk to you somewhat about the song. I want to stop this slide presentation for a minute. This song is felt to have come from Salonika, which was not only the largest Jewish community for a period of time, but also a center for Jewish music. And scholars feel, many of them, that the tower in this song is actually the White Tower of Salonika. So there's that. And other music scholars will tell you that references such as those that we talked about in Los Bilbilicos, the birds, the gardens, the rose bush, that those are all references to sexuality and fertility. So this is what I don't share with my audiences with little kids in them, and Kinsey will be just fine with this. Anytime there's a bush, something's happening under the bush. In this song, many people feel, as I said, that this is about the White Tower of Salonika. However, other scholars say that this tower is not the real tower that's being talked about, and that the lyrics of the song actually in the second verse, I went through the lyrics of the first verse just now, the lyrics in the second verse, Dame la mano palomba para subir a tu nido, that the nido is a nest. And so we are talking again about male and female relations in this song. So take for that what you like. Many people feel that these are just beautiful tales of nature. But there's something, I don't know, I think it's kind of instinctive about this. I've worked with Ramon Tassat, and he has really thanked me for, he likes that I don't put on a low cut gown. I do wiggle around the stage, but only when I'm in rhythm. It's not intentional. You know, he's in working together, he really feels that the songs should not have a sexual note, even though they are sexual. Just like today, kids will sing lyrics that are, you know, people sing songs. I can talk more about that a little bit. I just want to say the image of the chocolate cake and the kosher certification, those are actually from London. I visited the community there. So if you want that cake, you actually have to go to London near the Bevis Marks synagogue. So back to La Serena. I would like to thank Stefan Kukaruga. He's been with me through a long transition in repertoire and all kinds of things. Been a really good sport learning this music that he can't use for anything else. I want to share with you two of the music books that I mentioned in the email. I gave the names in the email last night. So one that I'll be using later is the Gerard Edgery book. He has a large database. He's not paying me. In fact, he tries to be accessible, I believe, but I think he's really busy because I've made several attempts to get hold of him with questions, and I've been unsuccessful. The good thing that happened as a result of that was I complained to enough people about not being able to get my questions answered that I was actually connected with Ramon Tassat, who has this book. And what I love about this book is it's all Ladino, because some of the other books, I won't name names, do include, the Ladino has been superseded by modern Spanish, and Ramon's book is all in a Turkish dialect of Ladino. It's all very uniform. So I like it for that reason. So I've wondered sometimes what it was that people said my grandma sang weird. And I've come to wonder, what is it about these songs? We know they have Arab rhythm, Arab beats in them, as well as Arabic scales. I approached a member of my local community to help me understand the Arabic nature of a lot of the music, because in Andalusian Spain, most of the population wasn't listening to what evolved into Ladino folk songs. The songs I'm singing are not from ancient Spain. They've evolved. But they stem from a place where Arabic music was being played. And what I have is an Arabic Mushawa Lamabada Yanafana. That is the best Arabic that I can do. I'm told that Arabic dialects are all really different. So if you didn't understand a word I say, it's because we speak different dialects. It's basically what I call the Arabic girl from Ipanema. I'll read the text in a little bit. The way she walks drives me crazy is the gist of the song. And this is what you might have heard in a marketplace if you lived in Andalusian Spain before the expulsion. When she started to walk with a swinging gait, her beauty amazed me. I have become a prisoner of her eyes. Her stem folded as she bent. Oh, my promise, oh, my perplexity. Who can answer my complaint of love and suffering? but the beautiful one. Aman, aman, aman. Surrender, surrender, surrender. Lama daya tapana, lama daya tapana, kini shamal fatana, oh bil thawasena, Krishna una hinama. Wadi waya hirati, wadi waya hirati, manirahim kushabati, filubin lowati, ilamai kushabati. So one thing that happened with Ladino was it was only one of a number of Judeo-something languages. There was Judeo-Aramaic, which is still preserved in the Talmud, that was superseded by Arabic as the Arabic conquests occurred. Judeo, you name it, it existed, Provençal, Italian, and all of these languages also lost out to the Judeo-Spanish because of the widespread travels of the Jews of Spain and a very firm love of their country and their culture, and they kind of took over the language and the customs in a lot of the places where they went. But I think it's interesting as we intersperse all kinds of words into English. I know that if I meet somebody who I think has a really neat house, I will call them Manit Nikit, because in Hebrew we add an it to everything, and it's an evolution of language. So that might be Judeo-English. I wanted to yeah. Okay, so the next song is people ask, what is authentic in this music? Lots of bands try to put together what is an authentic sound, and I don't know that we can really know that, other than that when you go and look at those field recordings and you see a group of ladies singing a song together, that's probably authentic. And if we could really do that today, if enough people knew the music, that would be the ideal way to do this music. But people like things that are pretty according to their culture and popular. I want to show you an example of one form of the next song that I'm going to sing, which is Ya Salió de la Mar la Galana. And Alberto Hempsey in this book talks about the song. This book is somebody who really loves me tracked this book down. He talks about the information that he got from the field recordings. That's what I love about this book. What I can't stand about this book, and also Isaac Levy's transcriptions, which are in a library in Chicago, is they had Western audiences, and they said, no way are these songs going to go over with our concert audiences. And so we will not only perform them on Western musical scales with Western musical styles and harmonies and chords, but we're going to notate them that way too. So field recordings can't be replaced. Ya Salió de la Mar la Galana is very appropriately, I think, placed in the wedding section. I mean, I don't mean, it seems to me like a wedding song. It's all about the pre-wedding mikveh, the kind of precursor to today's pre-wedding spa day. There are other songs in the wedding section here. I don't know how many of you know Moranica, and the pictures are showing, so I can't see if you have a show of hands. Moranica is in the wedding section, and I don't get that one at all. That's a whole other, like, that's a whole other thing. So in this song, I'm gonna stop this actually and play for you David Saltiel's version. And he's really interesting. David Saltiel was he was like the last member of his community in Salonika, Greece, survived the Holocaust. And he grew up, as all the children did, hearing this music from his mom. And what happened was the girls carried the music on, and the boys, when they got to be around 7, it was like, you aren't on your way to being a man if you sang these songs anymore. But he remembered them, and some archivists came to him and said, would you please sing these songs? And he said, fine, and let's do a CD. And he said, fine. And then they said to him, we know that you have been singing these on your own, but we want to have a band for you. And by the way, the band doesn't play in a key that you've been singing all these years. Nevertheless, he's just a great he's like a really good representation of some of the nature of what this sounded like in a house. And I want you to notice the melody here, because in talking about what's authentic, this melody is still used today, but not nearly as much as the melody that I'm going to sing. I think the melody that I'm going to sing just appeals more to people who listen to Western music. So he is here. And why don't I have any sound? Okay. I had it before. The speaker timed out. Let's try that. Okay. Well, let me just go back to the beginning of that. Oh, well, that's not what I was looking for. That's interesting. That sounds a lot like La Serena that I just did. And that must have skipped up, so just give me 1 second. Technology at its best. This was traditionally played where the mikveh was taking place, presumably somewhere near the Mediterranean Sea, by women with drums. And there was a whole celebration all day while the groom waited and waited and waited. And what I think the song is about is the women imagining what the groom is going through while he's waiting for this whole production to take place. He's thinking he might want to jump into the ocean if only his mother-in-law would let him. So I'm going to turn him, I don't know if you can hear me. Put up your hands if you can hear me over him, because I want to keep him on, but my mouth wants to keep going. Okay. My mouth, you know. Okay. So I actually, when I went to the person to talk about how this music was constructed from an Arabic standpoint, then we talked about the Arabic musical scales, and he heard the song. And even though Alberto Mizrahi said to me it was an island melody from the islands of Greece, this person actually felt really strongly that it had a lot of Arabic nature to it. And he said what you really can do to make it more authentic is change the keys as you go throughout the piece. So Stefan and I worked. That's how he lost his hair. Notating this with all of the changing keys, and went on. And in the meantime, I went back to this person who said, oh yes, change the keys and that'll be really very good. And I told him, you know, I want you to teach me the Malkamot. I know that the true Andalusian scales have been largely lost, but I want to learn how to do this. And he said, I'm not going to teach you because you're probably not going to be able to hear it, and I don't want to teach you. So it turned out I passed his test. I heard it and I sang it back, and we were working together. He has asked me to not say who he is, to never reveal who he is. I will say it is not because he is an Arab music person and I'm Jewish. It is because he's a man esteemed in his community, and I am an immodest woman. So that's the story. But so the version that you hear, once we realized this wasn't actually musically authentic, we were not doing that sheet music over again. So this is Stefan's in mind, Ya Salió de la Mar la Galana. Let me take off David's Salzio here. música está en el baño, mis músicas están en el baño, vestida de colorado, échate al mar. Échate a la mar y a cansar, échate a la mar. A la mar yo bien me echaba, a la mar yo bien me echaba, si la suegra licencia me daba, échate a la mar. Si la suegra licencia me daba, échate a la mar. Ya salió de la mar la galana, ya salió de la mar la galana, con vestido rosa y blanco ya salió de la mar, con vestido rosa y blanco ya salió de la mar. La novia ya salió del baño, la novia ya salió del baño. La novia la está esperando. Entre el alma y el río, entre el alma y la arena, más que un árbol de río, ya salió de la mar. Más que un árbol de río, ya salió de la mar. Más que un árbol de ya salió, ya salió de la mar, ya salió de la mar. So getting that excited in this little room is really kind of strange.
I'm taking myself off mute for just a minute. If you could see LeahAliza.
And the first thing he said was that he really wanted to make sure that I didn't sing the song in a way that was anyway sad, because he said it's a happy song, and many of the versions do sound like this wedding is not something to celebrate. I think he's right about that. So then we were singing about the scene where the bride emerges from the sea. It was the part about the dress of pink and white. Ya salió ya salió de la mar la galana con vestido rosal y blanco. And I was singing this, and all of a sudden I make this face, and all he can see is my face. And he goes, "What's the matter? Don't you like the dress?" Because my daughter was in the kitchen, and I don't know, she gestured to me somehow. So that is a song about a happy match. And the other thing that I was going to say about what is authentic music, so we have this sort of misinterpreted version of how to do this in the name of what was supposed to be authentic, but I think we kept it. I think that's part of the folk tradition. And that's just the misunderstandings happen, and people don't want to redo their music in Sibelius, and that's just part of my tradition of how I sing that. And when I hear my daughter around the house humming that, I think, you know, whatever it took to keep the music alive, we like the David Saltiel version in our house, and we will slap our thighs and do that. But this is also very hummable. So, and she can, and whatever key she's feeling like, she's got it. So eggplant, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Eliezer Papo suggested that I learn the eggplant song because I said I wish there was something that I could do to bring this to little kids that they could act out. And I didn't bring all of my props with me, but I did bring this. And bearing in mind what we were talking about earlier with all the references to fruit and flowers, the Ya Salió de la Mar la Galana definitely has that. The Bembrillo and the almond tree are again representations of male and female. And I have not seen anything about the eggplant song, but given what we've learned, I know if my sisters were in this crowd, I know what they would be saying about the eggplant song. And in fact, a bride was actually, if she was being, I didn't get to make this yet, but I will. If a bride, I actually brought a garbanzo salad from page 31. You want some? It's a garbanzo salad.
Not at the moment.
Okay. From page 31 of the cookbook that I recommended. I like that book because it's just really, it's got a lot of easy recipes. When I looked and said they might want a cookbook, I looked at the one that had the most markings on the pages. A young bride-to-be was actually judged by how well she was able to prepare eggplant. And I can just hear my sisters going, oh, that's like, oh yeah. So the eggplant song, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So this was originally 35 ways to cook eggplant. And if you know these songs, you might notice that sometimes I condense verses. They were actually used as lullabies with many repetitive, monotonous verses that were very effective in putting children to sleep. But for a group, I don't think we need as many, and yet I don't want to lose the meaning of the song. So this is 7 ways to cook eggplant condensed into fewer verses.
Siete godas seguisando en llena. La primera que la viste estafaba tan elevar hace bocadicos y la mete en una cena. La comida se llama comida la berenjena. A mi tía será así que la brota Berlino con vino, mucha tienda vino, con el vino. Mucha tienda vino. La segunda que la guista es la mujer de llama. La tercera que la guista se clase de piotti. La vaca por adentro, lechita los noti. Su comida se llama comida la mandrotti. Oh, mi tía será así que la trata de vino. Con el vino, mucha pierna de vino. Con el vino, mucha pierna de vino. En las mesas, las fiestas, el frío, chancharo, la salada, majestames, pastosa y saborita, mi vecina, la cartada, con aceite de oliva. Estos platos acompañan a los restos de gallina. La setana que la guisa es mejor y más canina. La alburnia saborita en calor y en calor. Ven, haremos una cena, nos casaremos los dos. Antes que salga casado y le quite la sabor a mi tía, será así que agrada beber vino. Bueno, vino, 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 mucho tiene el vino. Con el vino, 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 mucho viene el vino. Con el vino, 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 mucho viene el vino. So the final verse, going with what we were talking about, what my sisters would say, is that final verse is, the eggplant is so beautiful and we should enjoy it together. I just want to, speaking of these references, my daughter claims that only certain kinds of people see certain kinds of meanings and things, but I want I actually found it in this really obscure music book that somebody found for me. And Calador, it is, I will read the translation, but let me give you a bit of him singing this. Oh, it was never even on. This, oh, there it goes, okay. The drums again. With a bucket and brush, I was shouting, "Whitewasher," when a lady came out. "Whitewasher, will you whitewash the kitchen and the room for me, Osam Aga? I want you to give it to me with both hands, from the front and from the back, Osman Aga. Look, your brush is thick, before the master comes and finds us in this state. Let's go behind the kitchen before the master comes and finds us in this state." So I said, some of these songs tell us things about the lives of the women of the time, and a lot of that is Yet Another Day, but I was happy to find the actual song. I'm not the best sight reader. I have help, but I was happy to find that because I was curious, very curious about the rhythm on that. It's on my list of one of my hundreds more songs that I want to learn. So we are up to Puncha. Good?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was doing women's groups with non-Ladino music, one thing that I would do was include the very lovely Daniel Gross, Misha Berach, that I've shared on the website, as just a moment for some reflection on what's going on outside the room. And I know that there are some things that have come up this week for Sue and for Natalie and for the family of the baby in Robbie's family. And I thought, wow, I don't have anything in Ladino that stands in as really a time for thinking of healing and help for others. But there is a song called Puncha La Rosa, which means the rose has thorns. And it's a love song about a love who has been lost. And yet this is a real stretch, I admit that. And I do that, as you've probably figured out already. It's kind of a stretch, and yet there's one line in the song, and it goes, "El que me dé consolación." And she's talking about how her lover was her consolation, and thoughts of her lover. When recall of him is consolation. But if you play with words, El in Ladino is that, as it is in Spanish, but El in Hebrew is God.
And I thought, okay, I think I see something else in this song. So it goes, Puncha la rosa, the thorn, just as the rose has thorns, love is painful. The rose is beautiful, love is painful, but it hurts. I wish that you would leave me and I wouldn't have any more pain. It's kind of, sometimes I just wish I could kind of check out for a while. You know, life does that. Agotrate, I remember the past. I remember the lovely times. And I hope that they will bring me comfort, even though I feel like right now they're like gone and never going to happen again. From my highest highs, my montañas altas, to my lowest lows, God is my consolation. And she says in her lover, for her lover, who may be an explorer from the timing of the song, who is gone to sea, she hopes that he will look out into the sea and think of her or keep her in his mind's eye. And I would say that that could be in the whole vast world, you know, God, please remember me, much like the words of Sarah of Hannah in the Haftarah of her Rosh Hashanah. And so this is Puncha la Rosa. Again, basically a sad love song, but it is a moment to think about other things that we might want to think about.
Puncha, puncha la rosa, huele que el amor mucho duele. Tú no naciste para mí. Presto aléjate de mí. Acuérdate de aquella hora que yo te besaba la boca. Aquella hora ya pasó. Dolor quedó al corazón. Montañas altas y mares hondas, llévame donde mi amor, llévame donde mi querido, el que me dé consolación. Si otra vez me quieres ver, sale afuera, te hablaré. Echa los ojos al amor. Ahí me puedes encontrar.
It's difficult for me to find if there is a healing prayer in Ladino. My main source for finding things like that is Eliezer Papo and He's also like head rabbi for the Balkans, and so he's impossible to get hold of. I do have one of the few, it's really, as you can see, I'm a collector. If anybody has books in their basement about Sephardic stuff and they wonder where to send them, here I am. This is like a copy of the only women's sitter from pre-1492, written in Ladino with the prayers and the verb tenses changed for women. I have been going through it trying to see if I've missed a healing prayer because I don't read a lot of Ladino. I speak like New York City Spanish. I say that my Ladino has a Puerto Rican accent because I learned Spanish from friends who were Puerto Rican in New York. So if anybody knows of a healing prayer in Ladino, I would love to learn it. I would learn to love it too. That's what I was gonna say. So I did promise you that I would give you something that you could use during a service. So the women, even if there was a Hebrew prayer book and even a Ladino prayer book, I believe a lot of them, most of them didn't read. And so their worship music and their life cycle and holiday music was the Ladino songs. So, Fazaremos una merenda, it is time to make a meal and you can start some atmosphere. I am not going to directly translate this right now, but if you go to my website and go to the music page, here's a picture of buñuelos, big honey-dipped dough balls for Hanukkah. And if you click on the picture, that was a sound check that I did right after I learned the song. I needed to do it for a group of girls. And on that, I put my interpretation of what the lyrics mean. There's this mystery phrase. Most of them are pretty straightforward, but this mystery phrase that you may have picked up, which is aman, aman, aman. And that really, it's Turkish. It really doesn't translate to English. But in that video, I try to figure out or guess at what aman, aman, aman might mean. And this melody, actually, when I learned that, again, I was a poor sight reader and I didn't have Stefan. And don't use that video if you want to learn the melody because that is slightly off. So I am going to transition from the song, if you just want to make note, and then I'm going to pick it up to where I will use this in a kind of, see, I am a lay leader. About my notes. If I've been to cantorial school, I know all this stuff, right? In my head. Okay, so yeah, I'm ready to pick up. Fazaremos una merenda. Para ser buenos en los días de Hanukkah. So the congregation will need a few years, unless you can do that with the Hebrew school. I think it's a fun workout. I always hope, you know, I see in my head when I pick up speed on that, I see the belly dancers coming in and the flour in the kitchen flying.
LeahAliza, can you hear me now?
I just turned off my, my pictures and I see hands are up. I just want to, let's see how am I on time. Okay, my speaker is, turn my speaker on. Okay, I see it's, I'm going to give you a Ladino farewell, which is, oh, I wrote it so I wouldn't garble the pronunciation. Okay, so you should have a camino de leche y miel, a way of milk and honey. And I've got my speaker on if I took my full time, so, and I couldn't see any hands up, so if there are questions, go ahead.
Okay, so hi, I've been trying to ask you questions. What an incredibly beautiful presentation. We unfortunately only have an hour because the recording is going to stop now because we only have an hour allotted. I don't know if people have questions, but
email me or
okay, or if they wanted to ask you now because
yes,
they're, you know, other people may want to hear the questions. So
yeah.
So if you guys have questions, if you can unmute yourself. I am going to have to stop the recording because we're only allotted the hour. So I hate to cut us off in mid, but I need to do that because it was just a full hour. So